All right, so this is the test. It's the quiz review. These are all review questions that are supposed to be very similar to the ones that are actually going to be on the final. You do have 7, there's a total of 10 assignments to review for the final. They're all on Khan Academy, that's 100 points. The other assignment that's going to go into the grade book is your binder check. So this is the last page that goes into your binder. There's a total of 10 pages in there now, and we'll go over the 10 pages that I'm going to be checking on Monday for your binder check. Number 1, using the table below, plot the points. So I'm going to start out by putting the words shoes goes down here. I know that as shoes goes down there because it says shoe size X. This is X, and so shoes goes down there. And then up and down, I'm going to put the word height. I'm not going to bother putting all of these dots. It's not necessary in this particular case. You can put all the dots when you're taking the test. 10, 7.5. So I say a 10 size shoe is 70.5 inches. That's about right there. And then the other one, I'm going to just do the first one and the last one. 8.5, that's between 8 and 9, correlates to 67.5, which is right there. So I just put a couple of points, and I'm going to connect the dots, because I think that you all can put those dots yourself. So they go something like this. So that's going to be my line of best fit. The other dots are going to go in there. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them that I didn't plot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know what they're going to look like exactly, but something like that. Letter A, explain why this trend line best fits the data. The green line is as close to the dots as possible. Okay, so that's called a line of best fits, and it's because that's the line is as close to the dots as you can possibly get. All right, so that's number 1. This was height and shoe size, and it asks you to draw a scatter plot, and there you are. Okay, so that is number 1. Number 2, using the graph above, the equation is this guy. So let's look just at what the axes were. When it says, what does the problem mean? There were some people who asked me about this. What does it mean? They're asking basically, what are the variables? Now, the variables were height and shoes, right? So slope is the rise over the run. So slope is the rise, that's the height, divided by the shoes. So it's height per shoe size. In other words, the slope tells you how much your height changes when your shoe size, when your shoe size changes. So every time your size goes up by 1, then your height will go up by that amount. So the slope in this case is the height per shoe size, and they're basically asking you what the variables are. Now the y-intercept, that's where the star is where it starts, right? So it starts at, according to this equation, this is the slope, 1.86, and this is the intercept, so it should start around 51. I'm going to look up at the graph again and make sure that makes sense. So where does it start? Does it start around 51? Yes, it does. And then it should go up 1.8 and over 1. So that's, I'm again looking at where it starts. So what does the y-intercept mean? Well, I put a star on the height, and that's the starting where the, what starts? The height starts, where the height starts. Okay, so the meaning of the y-intercept is the up and down axis, which is where the height starts. Okay, next question. This is a sequence that goes 6, 10, 14, 18, 22. And then I need, just like in the equation of a line, I need to know 2 things. How much do these numbers change by, and where do they start? Incidentally, they start at 0. Not where n is equal to 1. So this is where n is equal to 0, this starts. Okay, how much do they change by? They go 6, 10, 14, 18, 22, so they change by 4. So these numbers are changing by 4. Where do they start? They don't start, I'm not asking for the first number, which is 6, I'm asking for the number before that. So 22, 18, 14, 10, 6, and the 0th number, the one before 6, should be 2. 2, 6, 10, 14. Okay, so the starting number is 2. And remember that y equals triangle x plus star. So y equals the slope times the variable plus the intercept. So y equals 4x plus 2 or 4n. Okay, so the answer is B. How did I get that? Is because the 4 was the slope and the start was 2. So this is a sequence of numbers that starts at 2 and changes by 4. Exactly the same thing here. These numbers change by 80, 60, 40, 20, they change by subtracting each time they subtract 20. So 80 to 60 to 40 to 20, they're subtracting 20 each time. Where do they start? I'm not asking for they start at 80, I mean the number that's in front of 80. So 40, 60, 80, what would be the number in front of 80? You guys can tell me. What would be in front of 80? 40, 60, 80, what's the starting number? The one before 80 is 100. 100, 80, 60, okay, because it goes by 20 each time. Okay, so I need an equation that says that. So the sequence is 100 to start with, and it subtracts 20 every time. So it's 100, the first number is 100, and it subtracts 20 every time and goes up by 1. Okay, so I'll pause. Okay, now we're on the second page. Jenna's working at this shop, and every week she works a total of 40 hours. So I'm going to put hours down here. I'm going to put money up here. And then let's make a table. This table is going to tell us how can I turn the hours into money. Okay, so this is where I'm going to put X. X is the hours. This is where I'm going to put Y. This is how much money Jenna makes. Now to turn the hours you work into the money that you make, each hour is 40, so that's 40 times the hours. So I'm going to take the input, hours, I'm going to times it by 40. Oh wait, no, 10, she only makes 10. $10 times the hours gives me how much money she makes. She works a total of 40 hours, so that means that the domain more than 0 hours, less than 40 hours. So she's only going to work 40 hours because if you work more than 40 hours a week, that's called overtime. So that means that the numbers down here, don't say that she works 100 hours because if she worked 100 hours a week, she'd die. Well, I don't know. So the numbers down here, I'm going to go 0, 10, 20, 30, 40. And those were my hours. And I still need to figure out what reasonable range would be. Okay, so the domain, these are the numbers over here, 0, 20, 40 hours, say. So that's my domain. It's more than 0 hours, but less than 40 hours, and that's the domain. And then I'm going to multiply those inputs by 10 to figure out how much money she makes. So $10 an hour for 0 hours, $10 an hour for 20 hours, $10 an hour for 40 hours. So I just moved the decimal one time. This is obviously 0. If she works for 20 hours, how much money does she make? $10 each hour, $200, and then $400, which is really not that much money, and that's how much money people actually make if they're making minimum wage. Actually, a little bit less than that. Yeah, it would be $400 each week, and then taxes take $100. So if you work full-time minimum wage, you probably take home, about $1,000 a month. And that's what rent costs for most places. Okay, so up here is going to be 400, 200, and then 0. Okay, that's a reasonable graph. So I'm going to put 0, 0, that's right here. 40, 400, that's right there. And then connect those. That's my graph. Okay, so I have remembered to label my X and Y axes. I've scaled it correctly. There's a good domain. There's a nice range. Everything is nice. Okay, what's the range? The range is up and down. The range are the up and down numbers. The domain are the left and right numbers. Okay, so this one, the months are between 0 and 12 because there's as many as 12 months. And then the money is anywhere from 0 to, there's an itty bitty number up there at 600. There's a really small number up there of 600. Okay, the domain. Can you pay for 1.5 months of cell phone? No. So it cannot be these real numbers. So these are decimals. So it has to be integers because you can only pay for whole numbers of months using a cell phone plan. Okay, so that's question number, this one. Okay, for ease, I'm just going to start these at 0, and I'm going to go with an interval of 1. So let's use 0, 1, 2, 3. According to the equation, these numbers, 3 times 0 minus 7, these numbers start at -7. Each time they change by the slope. What's the slope in front of the x? Okay, we have one more question, guys. Okay, so these change by 3, and so now that I know my sequences, I can set it up just to change by 3 each time. So it's going to change by 3, so this one's -4, the next one's -1 because it changed by 3, the next one's 2 because it changes by 3. Then it says do the same thing for the same slope but different y values. 0, 1, 2, 3 can be my input numbers. So let's just start at someplace different, like 1. We want to have the same slope, which means it changes by 3 each time. So what's the next one? 4, 7, 10. Okay, so these numbers have the same slope. They go by 3s, but they start at a different place, so they have different y values. Okay, so those are the answers for number 1 through number 7, and we will finish the rest of these questions later on.